morning, friends. And there has been a little difficulty. I thank you for waiting a couple of extra minutes. Something new has come up, so we are looking at the destiny of the nations. And I was with one of our computer experts, and he was doing his very best to bring us into a condition of aliveness. So here we are. And I appreciate your presence. We're going to do some reading from in relation to another nation. And I'll pass through these usual preliminaries. And these readings from the Tibetan are important. We're going to look at Russia. Now, admittedly, at the time that this was being written, Russia was in a more embryonic state than now. But still, what he said will combine with what he said about the United Kingdom, which we have reviewed, and about the United States as three great collections of nations and states that hold the destiny of humanity in their hands. So let's see here. I'm going to switch this and maybe go to yeah. Just a few things. He doesn't say as much about Russia as he does about the very old United Kingdom and about the United States, which is still a new nation, but the government of Russia was very new at the time. He includes Russia under a feminine type of energy, along with, let's see, India, I think, yeah, India, France, the United States of America, Russia, and Brazil are all feminine and constitute the nurturing mother aspect. And we have just to review, Russia, particularly the country, and not necessarily the Soviet Union or even the Russian Federation, but maybe stamped upon the Russian Federation are the rays of Russia, the Aquarian soul, and the Leonian personality. Now, as well, the seventh ray soul, and I think it's the only country of the larger countries and what he calls at the time the more important countries that has the seventh ray soul. And the sixth ray personality, which ties it in with Spain and the United States. And at least in terms of Spain, we understood that the war that took place there in the 30s, and which Franco in which Franco prevailed was a contest between the communistic idealism of the communists and the idealism of the fascists in Spain under Franco. Now, here we are on page 61. I want to point out also the capital. Let's see if I can find that. Well, anyway, I think I can simply tell you what it is without having to go too far backwards. This, the technical problem here was a little bit disorienting, but I'm determined to, get it fixed. The Moscow is the capital, and its energies have to do with the Taurian soul and the Aquarian personality. Now that's very interesting because it's a double emphasis upon the sign Aquarius. It is both the soul sign shared with the United States, and so out of that relationship some good may arise, will arise, but there is a double emphasis on Aquarius, and that comes from the personality sign of Moscow. So I could, I'm just going to read a little bit of what is said here about Russia. That Russia is peculiarly interesting at this time from the angle of humanity because she comes under the influence of both rays. These are the transitional rays. We are moving with all the turbulence involved from the sixth ray, which has accompanied the age of Pisces, and we don't know whether it's accompanied the great age of Pisces. I don't think he mentions that particularly, but anyway, the lesser age of Pisces, accompanied by the sixth ray cycle, into a lesser age of Aquarius, accompanied by a seventh ray cycle. So there, in Russia, that particular transitional drama is working out, and when we read the book The Destiny of the Nations, we understand that it's quite a critical transition, and we're still in the midst of it. In the United States there are many six-ray souls, and the same for Russia, but Russia is transiting into its seventh ray soul on a higher turn of the spiral, and the United States should transit from its sixth ray personality excuse me, into its second ray soul. The second ray and seventh ray will be very important in the Aquarian age for various reasons that we'll get into this time, and as soon as I get oriented next time as well, I think. So she comes under both the sixth ray and the seventh ray. Her egoic ray is the seventh, and her personality ray is the sixth. Hence the tremendous conflict which is going on between the fanatical sixth ray cruelty of her sixth ray regime, indicating many, of course, sixth ray souls, and the spiritual harmlessness which is the basic principle of the national ideology. We have, read so many stories about this disregard, this cruelty. I saw a great movie long time ago, and it was one of the Russian epic movies. I think it was called Andrei Rublev. It was about a famous medieval icon painter, and there was all kinds of competition between petty princelings and between czars and feudal lords and so forth. And the egotism under Leo was strong. So that when artists and artisans came to create a great palace filled with the most beautiful kinds of designs for the Tsar, and when they completed, they were returning to their place of origin, and he ordered that their eyes be put out so they could never again create an equal to what they had done for him. That kind of cruelty, and the kind of cruelty that involved religious persecution. You don't even want to read about it. Anyway, hence also the materiality of several important sections of her populace, and the essential brotherliness which is imposed by the idealism and the mystical aspiration of the Russian genius. That is, I think there was a great aspirational brotherhood, and I think again there will be. Maybe some Russians would say it still exists. It depends on the leaders, I suppose, at least in the short term. Hence also the correctness of their spiritual motto, which is as yet unrealized by them, but which is working itself out noticeably to those of us who can see upon the inner side of life. And the motto is, I link two ways, And of course the two ways pretty much are the East and the West. Their task which will develop as they come to a truer understanding, is the linking of the East and West, and also of the worlds of desire and of spiritual aspiration, of the fanaticism which produces cruelty. Look at Spain, with its sixth ray soul, and the understanding which produces love. Russia is equipped with that strongly as well through Aquarius, of a developed materialism and a perfected holiness, of the selfishness of a materialistic regime, and the unselfishness of a mystically and spiritually minded people. The New World religion will have a great origin, or a great impulse concerning that religion will arise in Russia, and all this in a most pronounced manner. So it's not just the East and the West, it's many contrasts that are being linked. So let me find this. Okay. Behind the closed doors. Now, the word mysterious is so often used. Mystical, mysterious, Mother Russia. And the music, the liturgical music of Russia, carries this mysterium. I think we will all agree, if we listen to it with our heart carefully. Behind the closed doors of that mysterious and magnificent country, a great and spiritual conflict is proceeding, and the rare mystical spirit and the truly religious orientation of the people is the eternal guarantee that a true and living religion and culture will finally emerge. Out of Russia, a symbol of the world, Arjuna, in a very special sense, the one who has to choose sides and hopefully fight on the side of spirituality. Out of Russia will emerge that new and, here's the word, magical religion about which I have so often told you. So there is your seventh ray, the magic affecting the field of religion coming in under the sixth ray. Now, somewhere here, I think I would like to be able to, I'll use purple. It's quite dark, but it is a color on the seventh ray. So let's see here, that new and magical religion. It will be the product of the great and imminent approach which will take place between humanity and the hierarchy. See, all of this was in the realm of prophecy. It still is. But 70-something years ago, when this was written, truly in the realm of prophecy, from these two centers of spiritual force, in which the light which ever shineth in and from the east will irradiate the west. The whole world will be flooded with the radiance of the sun of righteousness. It's a very beautiful prognostication. I am not here referring, in connection with Russia, to the imposition, a seventh-rate tendency in some respects, and also a sixth-rate tendency. I am not here referring to any imposition of any political ideology. In other words, seventh ray, you must conform to sixth ray political religious ideology. He's not referring to that, but to the appearance of a great and spiritual religion which will justify the crucifixion of a great nation, which certainly happened in the Second World War, and which will demonstrate itself and be focused in a great and spiritual light, which will be held aloft, see the idealistic language, which will be held aloft by a vital Russian exponent of true religion, that man for whom many Russians have been looking, who will be the justification of a most ancient prophecy. Well, I think, that's enough to get us started. It's almost as if the Tibetan anticipated that there would be reading these paragraphs, those from Russia, and they would be inspired. They would be inspired by what he is saying. So there are 14 main references in this book to Russia, and perhaps that's rather less than to the United States and the United Kingdom, or really Great Britain, but we'll get the idea of what role Russia must play. There's the picture of Moscow being ruled by Taurus, the second sign in its soul nature, and Aquarius in its personality nature. Quite a emphasis when you think about the Aquarian soul of the entire nation and the Aquarian personality of its major city. So we'll deal with other things here next time, perhaps from page 86 and the lesser influences which come from the major ruling signs, just as we did for the United States and for Great Britain. The only thing is, of course, that the Tibetan has not been quite so systematic when it comes to Russia, but he does say enough. Now, many things have changed. The whole world order and its relationship is in process of change right now, but we can certainly see how important it will be for a nation with a seventh ray soul, a vast nation about which he calls magnificent. I mean, look at that. Mysterious and magnificent country. He has his reasons to name them in that way. That certainly will play its part in the Aquarian age, and in the not too distant future there is promised some kind of significant cooperation between Russia and the United States. Right now we have such turbulence and the whipping up of the narrow idealisms, fanatical idealisms in both countries, and often those idealisms are pointed against each other, with, I suppose, the role of Britain to equilibrate the problem. And this problem has not even reached its head yet. There's a peculiar relationship now between the leader of the United States and the leader of Russia, but a lot of those negativities are going to be fading, and the opportunity for cooperation between the two Aquarian souls and the soul rulers of Ray 7 and Ray 2, which get along well, will present themselves. Those opportunities will present themselves. Okay, so I'm going to then go back here and with the idea of changing national and international relationships, we will, for a moment, think about our egoic gifts, what we are trying to cultivate in our own spiritual life. Let's take a few moments and think about how we are equipping ourselves to be of use in service to the divine plan. And now let us think of our own nation. Country, nation, maybe we can consider those words basically equivalent. You know, in some of the great nations or countries, people representing many other nations are found. But some new combination, some new mixture, some new amalgam is emerging. So your own nation, what is trying to happen spiritually in your own nation? Because unless, you know, the nation is very elementary in its development, and maybe there are some, you know, of the newer nations that have a lot to do strictly along the personality line, there will be a high spiritual objective. And even in the newly developing nations, there's often a high motto or spiritual objective. So, in terms of the egoic lotus, the causal body, the higher principles and virtues of your nation, what are they? What's trying to emerge? It's always an important question to ask. And now, a question that I will always ask is, what soul qualities are you contributing to your nation, and hence ultimately to the soul of humanity? What soul qualities are you contributing such that your nation grows in its soul expression? What is the interface between the gifts that you are contributing spiritually and that which your nation must contribute spiritually? We'll continue to ponder a little bit on that question. And sometimes, of course, if a motto is given by the Tibetan for your nation, it's the correlation of your own kind of spiritual motto and the spiritual motto of the nation. Maybe that's a new line of thinking, you know, that each one of us, a little microcosm, has a spiritual motto. And if you find that a spiritual motto occurs to you or some hint about it, you can kind of test it out. You can repeat it to yourself. You can see, does it fit? Maybe you'll hit upon something appropriate right away, or maybe it will take more development. And then will come the correlation between your motto and that of your nation's motto, if given. Usually these mottos are idealistic forms that are given, whether or not given by the Tibetan. But when given by the Tibetan, you know that they have accuracy. And you can take a moment and dedicate your high spiritual qualities to the emerging high spiritual qualities of your nation. When we serve as members of the new group of world servers and we know some of the important factors about our ability to serve, the energies involved, then we can be more effective. Right now, we can turn our attention to the stress that humanity is experiencing in terms of their health, in terms of what illness is doing to economies, in terms of social justice, and particularly we can offer the intention that these triple stresses may be exemplified in the United States, but really found in many other locales. These triple stresses of health, economics, and social justice will instruct humanity in a better way to live. It all comes as a karma at the end of the Piscean age, but let us think towards the education for better attitudes, better behaviors, better understanding in humanity as a result of these very destabilizing stressors. Now, some of them almost out of control. We think thoughts of learning and stability for the peoples of the world. Soul relations between nations within the great soul of humanity must be based on mutual helpfulness, mutual assistance, basically on sharing within the context of a peace which allows that sharing. And so we resolve to think along such lines that this mutual helpfulness will emerge, not just for reasons of national ego, but out of the love energy. And we remind ourselves that Master Morya instructed that the day will come when human beings will compete to do good, quite different than competition to serve a very limited and separative ego. So with our higher qualities and with the higher qualities of our nation, fed by our right attitudes, we progress to help the soul of humanity emerge. And we realize that all of this is done in the name of the great Lord, that whatsoever shall be asked in His name and with faith in the response shall see it accomplished. We would not dare ask anything negative or selfish in His name. And so we say the mantram together, attuning as a group to the presence of the Christ. We have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya. Be with us. In terms of statesmanship, the high use of the first ray, the relationship between nations, we seek to help bring in an era of peace. In the prophecies of some holy books, notably, if rightly interpreted, the Christian scriptures, a great era of peace is predicted. And then symbolically it is said that Satan, in this case representing the rebellious personality of humanity, will be bound for 1,000 years. Well, for some length of time, the personality, its ancient authority, will be subdued. And in the peace, in the sharing, in the clean interplay, the soul of humanity will be given the opportunity to emerge in strength. As we work interiorly, this is what we seek to promote. And it really helps, of course, for us to know the specific energies that we are dealing with. So instead of applying rheology and astrology only to our own individual cases, we can apply to our nations, the many nations of the world, and in general to the emerging soul of humanity. So we'll let our little reflection make its impression and realize that we are internal players on a very big stage, and behind the scenes we can do much to make the work of the outer workers more successful. Spreading goodwill, working with the triangles, a project dear to the Tibetan's heart, near to the Tibetan's heart, and in general, through knowledge of the gifts and liabilities of nations, see to a great harmonization of nations within the soul of humanity. I'll close with the great invocation as given in 1935-36 that calls for peace and goodwill. And then we will continue tomorrow morning, at least here in Europe it's morning. We will continue with the very necessary task of invoking financial resources for the hierarchical work which simply must be accomplished focally in the next 5 years, and maybe with growing intensity during the next century, the coming century, until the age of Aquarius is really upon us. 2117 is the date. Thank you for being here. We can all do our bit, all do our part. If we know ourselves well enough, we know our nation well enough, if we know humanity well enough, we can be part of the corrective solution.